You brought up how we fight culture wars and how we have to be everywhere. I am personally shocked in this presidential year that more culture issues aren't part of the dialogue right now, right? DEI and Kamala Harris, defunding the police, even cell phones in school. I'm in Virginia. This is something that the Youngkin administration has made a big deal. I think it's wildly popular with parents. I think that Trump should seize on this and make it a bigger deal to reach out to suburban moms. Are you shocked that culture is not more of an issue in the presidential election right now?
I don't know how much I agree if it's not a big. I think it is a pretty big
then disagree.
deal.
What do you think? What issue is in there that I'm missing?
Well, I'll put it this way. I think that to your point, because you are tapping into something that's correct, which is that there's not. It's not like there's the one big cultural issue that is sort of defining the election. That isn't happening. I think you're right. So it's more of like it's like everything. It's just a hodgepodge. All of these things factor in, but then a lot gets lost, I think, because we're not focusing on one thing or another. And I think that it would benefit us going forward to, hone in, I think, more deliberately on a couple of these major cultural issues and make them the message, especially going into November. I mean, crime is another one. That is very much a cultural issue. But it's come up a lot. I mean, obviously it's been a topic of conversation, but I think you have to make this the thing that we're talking about. But the other issue here is that we know that the mainstream media still retains a huge amount of power to drive the narrative, even in spite of the fact that we've got X with Elon. And all these things. We have other ways we can get around the mainstream media, but they still have that enormous amount of power. And they don't want this election to really be about anything because Kamala Harris isn't about anything. She doesn't really believe in anything. She's obviously, we know she's flipped on all of her signature issues. And so they don't want it to be about anything in particular other than just kind of like this vague sense that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, as they keep saying. And I think that's one of the reasons why maybe those issues haven't been more the focus.
So there's news that has just come out that George Soros has purchased about 200 radio stations. The FCC expedited the ownership approval process and literally went out of its way to do something that it normally doesn't do to make sure that he could get these quick by election day. Do you think that they're doing this because it's George Soros, or in part because they're worried that conservatives, to your point, we've finally started to have some success and are getting around some of the mainstream dominance?
I think it's both. I think it's both. And I hadn't heard that story. It doesn't surprise me. It's pretty terrifying, though, that he's able to wield that kind of power. But of course, we already that's been the case now for decades, and we've known that. But yeah, this I'm sure is in large part to solve what for them is a major problem. That although they do still have profound ability to drive the narrative, it's not a complete. They don't have a monopoly over the narrative anymore, like they had for so many years. And for them, that's a crisis level problem, and I guess they're trying to find ways around it. And we know that one of the biggest things they'd love to do is find a way to take down Elon and pry him loose of X. I don't think they're going to be able to do that. So they're probably looking for other ways to kind of flood the zone, and this is, I imagine, part of that.
I think back a year or two ago, maybe 3. Every corporation was talking about ESG, environmental social justice, and DEI, kind of what you address in the movie, talking about how these standards that they were going to adhere to and how they were going to hire more people and this and that to try to make the world more equitable. Conservatives pushed back, and I would argue effectively, to start to talk about how this was a wrong decision for corporations. They should be worried about making good products, their bottom line, et cetera. You've talked about the success of the Daily Wire in your movie, breaking through the ecosphere. The CEO of Daily Wire, Jeremy Boring, introduced razors and have been very successful. I mean, like products, movies, culture, corporations. Are we on the path to have more successes, or are these isolated instances? Do you think that we're learning to fight better, or is that too much of a read into it?
I think we are. And we talk about culture. I mean, there have been, and you pointed to some of them, there have been some pretty significant cultural victories that none of them are complete, let's say, but there have been significant cultural victories from the right in recent years. Another big one is the gender ideology. And it's probably maybe the most successful I've seen conservatives be in my lifetime, is on that issue in the last couple of years. And we've made major inroads in the fight against that, both legislatively and politically, but also just culturally. And so I like to think that there's a roadmap for the future that we're seeing kind of laid out here, maybe a blueprint. But it's a sustained effort. Like you can't take any one of these things and then rest on your laurels and say that the fight is over. It's like you got to, once you figure out, okay, well, this is how you fight back, then it becomes the everyday grind of, of doing it every day.
There's a story in Axios that said Harris's conservative culture play, from camo hats to libertarian rhetoric, the Harris campaign is staking its claim to symbols of conservative identity. The appeals to convey that Democrats are not trying to undo a conservative way of life and that red and blue Americans are not immutably divided by culture. They're clearly sensing that they've got to be careful on this. And I can't believe that Axios is saying that by wearing a camo hat and issuing a Harris Waltz camo hat, then somehow that's a play on conservative values. But I think they are sensing something, which is that we're winning on some of the stuff that they assumed was their territory.
It does show you that the camo hat stuff, of course, is ridiculous, and I hope that they continue down that path. I hope that's their best move. I hope that's their brilliant strategy.
Wear a camo hat.
Right, wear a camo hat, whatever, play country music at your rally and see how far that gets you. It's not going to get you very far. But it does show that they're a little bit on the defense. Another thing that tells you that is that Kamala Harris has been basically running to the right on immigration and crime.
Yeah.
And it's ridiculous. She's lying. She's lying about her record. She's lying about what she actually plans to do. But the fact that she feels the need to present herself as, a border security person and as a crime and a law and order person, the fact that she feels the need to present herself that way, I think shows you that we're winning on those issues. That's a big indicator.
Yeah. Matt, congrats on the movie. Just for folks that haven't been able to see it in theaters, where does it go? I mean, is it going to end up as a streaming, somewhere streaming? Is it going to be at Daily Wire? If people, how long do people have to see it in theaters? Where does it go from here? And where can people catch up on it?
It'll be for as long as it's having success in theaters, that's where it will be. So for the time being, certainly we encourage everyone who hasn't seen it to go to theaters and watch it. Go to miracist.com and get tickets. If you've already seen it, you can get tickets again, go watch it again, bring your friends, bring your liberal neighbors, whoever. Tell them you're going to watch something else and bring them to that movie, whatever you got to do. And we thank everyone for the support of the film.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.